my potted history is I came out of university. I did a first and higher degree, and as a chemist, I started as a research scientist, for example, and I'm not doing that now. So I kind of moved from there into wanting to connect into business and into forensic science, and then moved from there into business development, account management, etc. And here I am now talking to you on my job as client partner over at LinkedIn on our what we call our learning and hiring solutions. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to just show you a little bit about some of the high-level guidance and tips about using LinkedIn to help you take that journey. Now, what I will say is, and Yaya is going to follow in after me about LinkedIn Learning. And LinkedIn Learning, as you'll hear me reference, is a great tool that is available to you now to help you to develop and identify those skills and nurture them and evidence at least your completion online of LinkedIn Learning content, but put that onto your LinkedIn profile. So that's an important part of that journey. But you will see that for a lot of people, it's about not what I call just the linear pathways, but looking at other options around that one. So I'm going to look at that and talk to you about some of those sort of high level guidance points about what's involved. And the last thing is on LinkedIn Learning, just for your knowledge and reassurance, there is a full pathway called Rock Your Profile, which Yaya will kind of will follow up with you with some various links, but that will take you through all the details around how to build a great LinkedIn profile. So rest assured, you can take your time doing that as a follow-up. Today, sit back, relax, and let the relevant pieces seep in as you see fit. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let's just go in and have a look at that. And hopefully this will work. I've had a few issues with sharing screen. I will probably ask you, Adele, just to confirm that you can see my screen, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ralph. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And shout if something drops off, which I did earlier to me today. Okay, so here's my usual feed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about my profile, but talk about some of those high level points. Now, before I do, let me just give some context on LinkedIn. There are now over 850 million people worldwide with a LinkedIn profile. In the UK alone, that number is now over 31 million people. And when you think about the size of the working population of in the UK, it's probably around 32 million. So most people now in the working population have a LinkedIn profile in the UK. A little story I will give you is on the first day that I started working at LinkedIn, I was jumping on a plane to go over and do some training over in Ireland, and I got a taxi driver. He was a new taxi driver, and he was we were chatting away. I'd used the firm for some years. He said, I've just joined the firm, and he was saying, oh, do you like them? I was like, yeah, it's great firm. And he said, oh, well, I thought they looked like a good firm too. And I said, all right, yeah, so what made you come here? And he said, well, I was on LinkedIn. And he didn't know what I did as a job, and I found this immediately. Of course, I stopped and went, do tell more. And he said, well, do you know, he said, I only go to LinkedIn. It's the only place I take seriously for understanding what's going on and where I would actually go out and look for a job. He said, because over the years, I put my profile up there. And he said, in the case of this company, they approached me through LinkedIn a while ago. He said, but I wasn't ready to move at the time. But I did follow them, and I started to see what they were doing. And I really liked what they were saying and about the kind of feedback they were giving about their culture environment. He said, because I've done every job, he was telling me. He said, I've done the driving, I've been on the telephones, I've managed a cab firm. So he said, I've done all sorts of jobs. What I really like is I like being with a firm with the kind of family environment. He said, and so I was able to kind of do my research, understand them. And when the time was right and they approached me again, I thought, this is the place I want to come and work. So I thought, wow, what a great example. If a taxi driver in the west of London is using LinkedIn to make those decisions about how they develop and evolve their career, then there's got to be something right here. And I think that's just a great example of just how relevant LinkedIn is for everybody nowadays. So why use LinkedIn? Well, we were set up with that back 19 years ago, very much as a recognition that there was an opportunity for a professional social network where people wanted to talk in the context broadly of the world of work and understand what was going on. And for yourselves, what I would say is the first primary message here is use LinkedIn to be curious about what is going on in the world of work around you and that interests you. You can use it as a great resource to research, understand, and see what companies are up to and industries are up to. and follow those. So the first thing I say to people, whether they are coming to the workplace the first time, maybe just exiting out of higher education, or have many years there, is go out there and search and find out about companies. Observe. Just be curious, get comfortable with it. You don't have to contribute into the chatter feeds initially. You can just be an observer. But in doing so, that will give you ideas. It'll help steer you. So that's the first thing. Now, as you get more comfortable using LinkedIn, you can start to then articulate your own position and presence and start to then reach out and create those connections. Now, for reference, for example, with alumni of Birkbeck, or other institutions, we know that if you build connections with the alumnus, you will find that statistically that many people who are also alumni of the institution will be quite happy to make connections. People are generally warm to being approached. If you say, look, I saw you were at Birkbeck, I'm really interested to read about your background. I saw you when I was seeing some of your chatter feed, and I'd love to make a connection. And maybe we can find 15-20 minutes to talk. I'd love to understand about your career path because it looks really interesting to me. Often the people, those things are really well received, providing they come with that qualification. So that's the kind of position you can get into on LinkedIn. They can be really powerful as a way of helping you make decisions. And of course, if there's mutuality there and the person says, that's really interesting, there may well be job opportunities as well connected to that. They may say, well, actually, if you're really interested in me or my company I've worked in right now, look, I'll see if there's anything out there available. I'll talk to our hiring team and maybe put you in touch. And that's how we see a lot of people very successfully progressing through. So just a quick bit on, so I'm just going to quickly, and actually just for today, for fun, as my screen's up there, just by way of example, Brad, who's a colleague, a former colleague over here, worked with me 15-20 years ago. Brad's done great things, doesn't surprise me because he was a great guy, but he's now chief marketing officer of an organization, so that's great to know he's in there. And there may be a time when I can go and I can ask Brad, tell me more about what it is to be a CMO of a fast moving company, because some of those skills that you talk about or you have really interest me, and I've built some of them, but I want to progress them. So what do we do with a profile? Let me just show you my profile here, and I'm just going to give you some very quick headliners about profiles. The first thing about having a profile is you should be yourself. You should be your authentic self. This is about conveying who you are, and it is a professional environment. So you want people to see you in that light. It means having a kind of a decent kind of headshot picture. We know that there are something like about 10 times more likely to be picked up in searches if you've got a picture versus if you don't. So make sure you've got a photo up there, because it's about you being a person that people can engage with. That your title reflects your overall what you want to express. How you describe what you do doesn't have to be just a job title. In fact, it shouldn't really be. It should be more about what you like doing or what you're passionate about doing. You can record your voice if you want these days, just little things like that, so that people can understand what the pronunciation of your voice is. You can choose if you want to elect about your gender, for example. And again, all these things will be in the Rocket Profile area. And you will see that, for example, you can do now things like quizzes. So back to those skills we talked about. Now, I thought it was really interesting as we got the input from yourselves about some of those great skills, and Adele giving us a framework around that one. It fascinated me because you can also find out, and again, we'll send you some links after here, about some of the most in-demand skills that we get on aggregate across LinkedIn, across those 800 million people and the millions of jobs that they go into, because we see that data too, and all the employers, we can see the supply and demand. And you've nailed a lot of them in your feedback. Collaboration, communication, critical thinking, absolutely right. All these are valued. So in your profile, you want to be describing not only your job, your job descriptions and your history, but you will want to talk about what skills you have, and you can use the skills evaluations and tagging to draw those out and articulate them so that they can be found. Because bear in mind, it's as much about helping the system, the algorithms in the system of LinkedIn and potential employers to find you. These are all tags that can be used as you pull out your skills as well as your employment. The way that LinkedIn works is when we have somebody who's hiring for a role, they will go in and they will search into the member profiles, and what's being picked up are both explicitly stated skills and implied by your experience. So we use a mixture of, technology to find those analytics, and also our human experts to kind of make the systems nuance and understand these areas. So do get out those skills and articulate them in your narrative, and draw them out there and put them into the system. Of course, have your education in there as well. You can do certifications on LinkedIn Learning. You can complete courses there and show what you're interested in, and you can populate those into your profile. You can also, some of our content LinkedIn Learning, and again, Yaya will come back to that, that's available to you, will take you all the way to what we call pre-cert ready, pre-certification ready. So some of the particularly things like the technology pathways you can go all the way with us to preparing to take the certification exam with that provider. Now, one of the things we didn't talk much about with those skills that you picked up on were some of the technology-based skills, the technical skills, and they are strongly in demand. And I would encourage you to think about how transferable some of those skills are, especially in areas such as data science and analytics. And Adele talks about analytics as a key area. These things are in high demand. So if you recognize, and again, we've got some other tools where we'll help you navigate some of this, but if you recognize some of the pathways you want to go down, if you're on LinkedIn, like I said, on LinkedIn Learning, and you're taking some routes and you're building some skills, you'll even see now in your LinkedIn profile, it will start making recommendations to you, and it might well say, actually, have you thought about doing something like data and analytics, if that's the way you want to go? So we're kind of bringing all this together, but make sure that you're also drawing those out. And again, you might then take that course, or even go all the way and take a certification on a particular platform and get that onto your profile, because that's really going to lift you up in those algorithms I was talking about. It's going to people are going to pick up and see what you're passionate about. Do be your authentic self, as I said at the beginning, which means this is about what you want to be seen. I always say to those, often students I speak to, it's really important that this is out there in the public domain, and you want people to see you for how you want to be seen in the world of work more broadly. So follow the links, the guidance, because I'm not going to go into too much detail right now about that, but it is all on the piece there. And keep in mind, yes, all the skills we talked about, there's great things like, how will you evidence your critical thinking, for example? Yeah, absolutely. If you've gone, you're studying right now, Beck, you will have critical thinking in there. But how will you draw that out and explain that and articulate it? So, and again, storytelling can be useful. Saying, I'm really passionate. When I've been studying at Birkbeck, my final year project was on this area. It required a level of deep analysis or critical thinking, reflective. I found it really interesting as a subject for the following reasons. I'm looking to demonstrate in other opportunities, other projects or other initiatives that I can apply that same level of rigor and insight to be able to find clear recommendations moving forward and go from a hypothesis to a strong thesis, if you like. So all these things, just try and think it through and get ready. But like I said, take your time to build it. It's a dynamic, evolving profile that you have. So it's just about getting it going and build it as and when you want to. And then it comes back full circle is, as you do that, get in there, do your searches. You'll start to see chatter feeds coming in as you build your profile saying, this is what's also going on around you. You'll see recommendations. And as the system learns about you, you can start going, hold on, I'm really interested. I've just read some really interesting stuff by Accenture that makes me want to say, well, what else does Accenture do as this big consulting firm? And can I get into that? And as you do that, and you start searching those firms, and when you do research, it will show you with a company or an organization what your connection levels are. And again, if you're not aware of that, there's typically first, second, and third levels. First level means you're directly connected. You've made a connection to them. Your second level connections is that somebody is connected to that person. And the third, in effect, means there is, it's a friend, it's a person of a person of a person. And that's most of the world. So it's good if you see a company you like and you're interested to read about it. It will tell you who your first level connections are, but it'll also tell you for the second level connections. And that can be really useful because you might go to your first connection. Let's say it's Fred, and say, Fred, look, I just realized that, Bob over at Accenture. Fred, I'm just wondering, how well do you know Bob? You could drop them an email, which is the internal email, and LinkedIn, or call them. And if they say, actually, pretty well, I've worked with them for several years, and then that's how you can make a connection to that person. Maybe then ask permission to have a call or an email discussion and say, look, I was really interested to read about this report done at Accenture. I don't know whether you have jobs here, but this is me, and I'm thinking maybe there's opportunities there for me. And that's how we see that network evolving, maturing for you, supporting you in those pathways. So that was the piece around LinkedIn. Now, there's one other tool, and again, Adele and the team will share this with you, but I've got you on the
Ralph,
screen.
is it all right just to pause there for a minute, Ralph, because we've got some questions coming in.
Go.
So Ryan's asking, is it a good idea to post short videos of various aspects of your work to extend and enhance your LinkedIn presence?
It's a fantastic idea, absolutely. And again, if you read that, if you watch the Rock Your Profile, it's one of the pieces of great development that we've seen in the last recent times on that one. Is it actually videos go down really well. They go down really well with people. Whether you're self-employed and you're promoting your skills and development as an individual, whether you're promoting yourself to be hired, absolutely get on and say that. And because multimedia does get higher hits, so 100% agree.
I'll just give other people a moment just to think. If you want to use your hands up in the chat, if you've got a question to ask Ralph about LinkedIn profiles, you're obviously welcome to do that. I've actually used the skills certification. So I think I did an advanced PowerPoint, an advanced Excel skills building course or quiz or something on LinkedIn, so that I could put that in my profile as evidence of my skills, as well as endorsements from people. Excellent. We've got a question. Sorry, Bonnie, go ahead.
Hi. Sorry, my video doesn't work. I wanted to check with LinkedIn. So I've jumped around a lot of different jobs, either through not being sure of what I wanted to do early on in my career, and then more recently because of the pandemic, unfortunately, across a number of different industries. Similar to a CV when you apply for a job, would you recommend tailoring the LinkedIn profile for what it is that you're currently applying for, or keeping that previous kind of mix of history in there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's a judgment call. Yes, I think I did. If you know that you're consistently at that point in time orientating yourself around a particular type of role, then I think it is worth refreshing your statements around that. Certainly in your personal statement, Bonnie, when you go up here about here, you would want to probably make sure that reflected you. Mine is written in passive voice, but actually we encourage first person and maybe saying, look, this is I've taken this journey. I've learned in that journey that there are certain areas that I particularly excel at and that I'm particularly focused on, and I would love to speak to you if these are the kind of areas you're interested. Something to that effect, and with very much kind of an orientation about this is what I'm good at, this is my passion, and this is what I'm seeking. Definitely update your about section on that one, which is we'll pull that out, and then obviously make sure that you're reflecting that in any evidence through your experience around that one, because it is dynamic, and that's absolutely fine. And on that, Bonnie, I mean, I've gone through a whole bunch of jobs in my career. While the majority of my career has been spent on probably in 3 or 4 key roles, I have got jobs that lasted a year, 18 months. They're in there because I want people to know that there's not a gap there, but at the same time I don't linger on them because they're not going to express what I'm interested in as a primary area. So again, it's a little bit to your saying, is kind of making a bit of a judgment call of where you want to focus people's attention on what is going on. Or that of all the things you've got, the bits that are most relevant, while being transparent about the realities of what you've done, or being ready, if you're not going to include it in there, just being ready when people ask the question, why is there a gap here in chronology, which it's absolutely fine, but just be mindful of that.
Great question. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Laura's got a question. If anyone else has questions after Laura, if you put them in the chat, because when we pass over to Yaya, Ralph will be able to answer via the chat. So Laura, just go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Yeah, just building on that previous question, because I've got a LinkedIn profile that is focused on my current job, and I've got 20 plus years of experience in that job. But because I'm looking to switch to something that's potentially very different, I was contemplating setting up a brand new LinkedIn profile. And the reason for that is so that I've got two profiles, one for my current job and one for the new, just because I'm in this transition phase means I might stay within my old job for a little while as well. And I might be basically having one foot in two different industries. What are your thoughts on that?
Candidly, I wouldn't create two separate pages. I think it will create confusion around the algorithms, and I think it could be misinterpreted. So you may not be found the way you want to be found, and I think people might go, "Why have you got two profiles?" I think you can be honest, I think, and say, you know, I've got a portfolio career. I've developed these areas, and I have the ability to take these two different pathways. I think you can express that and say this, and be quite clear in, for example, your mission statement, your description, saying these are the two areas that I currently pursue this area, and I look in this area. My personal view is, I think, speaking when I regularly do speak to agencies, to hiring managers, and my wife came through that pathway. I think people get a little bit jumpy if you're not consistent, at least in that area. And I think it can be a bit like, well, who are you? And I think you can say, I am these things, and I have a portfolio career, and that's absolutely fine. But I think if you were to create two profiles, it might make people go, well, which one are you? It doesn't seem like it's coherent, or at least understood in that transparent way. And I could see it getting inadvertently misinterpreted, or the system just simply not picking you up when you're doing searches and getting confused about who you are. So I would stick with one profile and be transparent, or be ready to flip it and say, okay, you know, when you're ready, you have it ready at a sort of second version, and then say, I'm now restating this. You know, increasingly we're seeing people taking career breaks for personal reasons, and saying, I've taken a break, and where I'm now focused on is now this, and this is me. And the system is dynamic, so it'll refresh it. So, you know, it'll show that new version as you want it to be seen. So that would be my feeling, is just, you know, either put it in there as the multiple capabilities, and so I can go these ways, and I'm interested to hear about it, or wait for this is my focus and this is what I want to express.
Yeah, I'm just in a tricky situation because I'm in a transition period that it may last for a couple of years. And in a way, not that I'm not being transparent with my employer, but because I work in IT as a relationship manager, and I want to carry on doing that. But a lot of, when I apply for jobs, people are worried to say, well, why are you doing a degree in something completely different? And so in a way, I am in this transition phase. And so I think it would worry people more in a way to say, and to have this blurred line. So that's why I think maybe having a separate one temporarily, and then flipping it and doing exactly as you said, and merging it. Once I'm transitioned, great, then I've got all this wealth of experience and transferable skills, and I've got a story to tell. But until then, I'm in two different places.
I will say this: the authenticity and the passion are really, really important. And if you have a passion and you say, this is what I do as my day job, my passion also, though, covers this area, it generally works in your favor. The evidence suggests actually people really like that. They see you in the round. And I think you're absolutely right to say, this is my current career. I have additional passions, and that's, of course, things like volunteering as well, and all the other areas. But you can say it from a pathway point of view. This is my passion. I'm pursuing this. I'm developing this. I'm quite clear with people and say, I haven't put it on my LinkedIn profile, but I talk to people about it every day, saying, right now I'm learning guitar. It's a personal passion. I'm learning guitar, and you can do it on LinkedIn Learning. So I've used that as an example of that. But it drives me because it motivates me, and it's my creative outlet, which I just didn't have for a period of time. Now, I think that's valuable for people to understand, because that's about what's motivating me, and where, you know, and I'm not saying I'm going to go and do a career as a guitarist, because I'm not going to get to that point, but it does reflect part of me. It is me being authentic and saying, but that is where my creativity, where my channel is coming, and people value that because they understand that it's also about the pathway for growth, that I am continuing in that growth attitude mindset of saying I'm going to do it. So I think on all of that, have a think about it, but I think you would be wise potentially to say, this is my day, this is what I currently do, and I'm committed to this right now. I have an additional passion that I'm pursuing it. This is what I'm doing, and this is why it's passionate to me. Because it's the why that people want to understand, and you'd be pleasantly surprised how often that might trigger people, especially if it is more professionally orientated, for people to go, actually, that's really interesting, because we struggle to find people with your skill sets, with those two pieces. So they may come to you going, it's because we saw the two pieces that we want to talk to you. So, you know, I think don't underestimate that. But ultimately, it's your call as to when you choose to put that up there, maybe, and say, I'm going to kind of flip that now. And like I said, we do see people that go through those career changes and say, hey, I've made that step now, and this is where I'm going. And others who go, watch this space, I'm going to be doing something different. And, you know, that's their chatter feed. You know,
So that was a really great question, and we really wish you luck as you move forward with that. Ralph, I know you've got one more thing to show us.
Yeah, very quickly,
in a couple of minutes, and then we need to pass on to Yaya.
Absolutely. So here's a useful little tool that is free and available to you, and we'll send as part of the kind of follow-up links. It's basically called Career Explorer. We developed it about 18 months ago, but what it does is it allows you to go in, and there's a little, when you come in, it'll show you the little demo at the beginning, but if you go down the bottom of the page, it looks like this. You can stick in a job and an area. So let's just put in, you know, if we put in someone like London, if you're interested, if I could spell London, if you are interested in understanding the skills behind jobs that you may be interested in, I use something like data analyst as an example of that, you can do a search in here for types of job. And what it will do is it will allow you to see the skills behind that. And because you can see here, it will connect back into your LinkedIn profile, but it will show you all the related types of jobs and the skills and the popularity and the match to you, and how it might match up with what you have and what jobs are available. So I would encourage you, if you're trying to explore and saying, well, hold on, I'm kind of, what jobs are out there, or I've heard this job, I'm not quite sure what's involved, and what would I need to have as a capability? It's a great tool to help you go through some of that evaluation. And like I said, as we're coming on to Yaya now, you'll see some stuff in LinkedIn Learning itself that will do a similar parallel exercise and actually pause some of this to help you think about some of those pathways as well. So take a look at that. It's a great tool. It's fun to have a look at it, get curious, and help you think about some of those journeys you might take in that area of diverse and erratic jobs for some of us. So I think, Adele, if that's okay, I think it's probably time to pass on to Yaya.
That's great. Thanks, Ralph.